One union the Nigerian government dreads to go on strike is NUPENG. When its members down tools, Nigerians pay the painful price. We would like to know what the union is doing to address the issue of minimum wage. I'll be discussing with the president of the union, Comrade Igwe Achese, who is also the deputy president of the United Labour Congress. Join me.
Hello, Sharon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You're welcome.
Thank you. We will be discussing minimum wage on this episode, and from my findings, Nigerian government approved 18,000 naira as the minimum wage in 2011. 6 years after, Nigerians are still receiving 18,000 naira, and from my research, it shows us that we've already had inflation, about 16% inflation, if I'm correct, after this minimum wage has been actually set up since 2011. I would like to ask you, as a Labour leader, what do you feel about this development? With this inflation, do you think that this 18,000 naira can take any Nigerian home?
Well, Sharon, thanks for that wonderful question. That has been a serious concern in the working environment today. Very, very sad to see that 6 years down the line, we're still at 18,000 minimum wage, which is not up to. If you divide that by about 25, 28, 26 days of working, you understand that the Nigerian worker who works in a day earns less than $1 today as it is now. So it's sad that we find that less than $2 per day. And that is how painful it is. The minimum wage today is not sustainable. You've just mentioned the issues of the inflation. It was about 17%. I think it's gradually coming down a little bit to 16.5, if I'm not mistaken, 16.7 thereabout. Now, today as it stands, no family, a working family of 5, or even a working family of 3, can survive the current economic situation of finance. Those are economic realities. And so we want to believe that 18,000 minimum wage cannot sustain any longer. Inflation is very high. Nigerians are suffering. And so we hope government, should be able to bounce back and see how we can move forward.
Okay, the Federal Government Executive Council has announced recently that they've inaugurated the Minimum Wage Commission. But also we are aware that it's been approved that a technical committee should be set up, and we have the committee. Well, I'd like to ask you, has it been inaugurated at the moment? And if it's not been inaugurated as we speak, what would you say the government is trying to do in terms of achieving that workers' minimum wage is being improved upon? Would you say that the Nigerian government is paying lip service to the Nigerian worker, especially when it comes to the minimum wage issue that we are faced with?
On the 22nd, we got information that the Minimum Wage Commission has been inaugurated. The other side of the Minimum Wage Commission is that 2 current labor centers are not represented in that commission, which is the TUC and the New Labor Center, ULC. NLC is quite represented. Issa Ramo is a member of that committee. Prior to that inauguration of the committee, a technical committee was being set up late last year, should I say early last year, to look into a profiling basis of what new minimum wage should look like, putting into cognizance all the criteria and all the various indices that is needed. And so we worked on that issues. I'll say, I think in June or July, the technical committee rounded up her report and submitted that also to the acting chairman of the technical committee, which is the Minister of Labour. We had a series of meetings. In that meeting, the Minister of Finance was there, Minister of Budget and Planning. They all made presentations, which we looked at all the whole issues. Fine. At the minimum wage level, for us, NLC presented 56,000 naira as a minimum wage, and we said that it's not sustainable. For ULC had a position of 90,000 thousand naira for minimum wage, which we still believe that is still not sustainable when you talk about living wage for any Nigerian worker today in the country. But we say, let's take it up a little bit, at least because sometimes you begin to ask yourself the percentage of increment, when you just shoot it up in one whole moment, how the reflection or reactions will look like. So let's take it a step forward. But fine, the technical committee had done her job. The negotiating council, the minimum wage negotiation is yet to be inaugurated. Like if you watch last week, where ULC also embarked on a 3 days strike action, but that was later suspended because of the interventions of the Director of SSS, Minister of Petroleum, Minister of Labour, and Power and Steel, so which we need to go into having more broader meetings. We've been nominated also. ULC has also been nominated to be a member of the negotiating council. At least we have gotten a slot.
And you are serving under that?
I'm also serving on that committee. Now, the committee for negotiation is yet to commence her job. We hope strongly, is every hope of Nigerian worker today to say, look, by the time we get into the main negotiating council board, that will be able to drive home the whole ideas of increasing our minimum wage beyond 18,000 naira that we're having today. We're looking at getting something huge to, because why are we having inflation in the country today? Because the purchasing power is very poor. So until we develop that purchasing power that can also compete with the market demand, we'll continue to remain where we are in terms of recession.
Well said. But if we are going to look at it, we are talking of raising the bar when it comes to minimum wage. But we also have so many states that are not even paying workers' salary. How would you take this as a labor leader? Do you think the sensitization process should take place when it comes to good governance? Or what would you think could be done to ensure that Nigerian workers actually have a living wage and are not being owed salaries?
Let me be honest to you, Sharon. It's very unfortunate we find ourselves in this kind of situation. I think we need to redefine our way of governance as long as the country is concerned. We need to restructure our approach to issues. I'll tell you some of the challenges we are facing today in terms of non-payments of salaries and arises from most of those in governance, talking about from the government, the governors, the presidency, go down to the tier of governance where we find ourselves at the local government, is placement of priorities. That is where we're having the problem. Now, you can't imagine a situation where a local government chairman will be talking about security votes that is unaccountable. A state governor is talking about security votes that is also not accountable. At the federal level, again, it's also talking about security vote that's also not accountable. Now, tell me why Nigerian workers will not be owed their salaries, who has sacrificed so much to generate the revenue equation that is being mismanaged or misplaced or misappropriated as expected. Now, for me, we can only get it right. No governor, no local government worker should be owed. No governor should owe a local government, or even the least local government worker should be owed. No local government chairman should say he can't pay his local government workers. So the issue is priority. The issue is things of importance that should be placed first. And the key thing of importance is to place first the workers' rights and privileges, which is their salary. Of course, if a country wants to pull out of recession, you must begin to talk about payment of Nigerian workers' salaries as a country today. So that is where we find ourselves. So no government will say vividly, if sitting down in governance council where you find yourself as a governor and that you prioritize your choice of expenditure, that you cannot pay workers' salary. None. No governor can get up and say, I cannot pay my workers. And so a situation where governors will begin to be a businessman, a local government chairman will become a businessman, in going to borrow money from banks above your income in the state, borrowing money to say you want to put infrastructures. If you prioritize them and begin to look at time frame, budget frame, and look at the length of period you think one project can take, if we do that, definitely, I'll tell you, we'll put infrastructures on ground. Workers will be so happy to pay for those infrastructures that they are seeing. Incomes will come, more development will not take place. So we need to begin to differentiate these issues. Until we get to that level, I'll tell you, governors will continue to play the role they are playing. And so for me, no governor in this country will say, I can't pay my workers if we actually prioritize the issues. Now, go down into the records and find out how much, let me just use how much is being expended by a governor on security. Now, even if you divide that money time by 3 and say you're taking 2 portions into minimum wage, into salary and wages of Nigerian workers, I'm telling you, definitely we're going to get our system clear. But I think everybody must work must put his hand on deck to work. Everybody must begin to ask ourselves what is the best way to approach some of these issues and challenges that we're having. But I tell you, today as it stands, the Nigerian workers are paying the ultimate painful price.
Finally, I would like to ask, would you say that the emergence of a new labor center would affect the negotiation as regards the review of the new minimum wage?
Of course it will not. The system remains permanent, when you talk about a new labor center, it has nothing to come and change overnight. Talked about the act that established the minimum wage commission won't change. You talk about the current minimum wage we're having today, or in terms of going into negotiation, won't still change. The same models of negotiation is going to still take place. But the new labor center only came in to say, look, we need to restore back hope to the Nigerian workers. At a certain point, we discovered that Nigerian workers were losing this confidence on the labor movement of the that was built on its so strong foundations from their founding fathers. Now, our new labor center, ULC, is to create that enabling environment to give voice back to Nigerian workers to say you can also speak. You can also say something in terms of your welfare, in terms of how you feel. It's not an issue of one group of individuals going to do negotiation for workers. I'll tell you, today in the oil and gas sector, we don't just go and sit down and negotiate for workers without the workers' representatives themselves being part of that negotiation. And so you can see the structure of our democratic principle in our own system. And so that's what we're also building the new USC, that in every meeting, like the recent meeting that was called by the minister in terms of the enlarged meeting to address some of the issues that were put forward under ULC, we requested, one, all unions whose issues were mentioned in our letter to government must participate in the meeting and also sit there broadly to discuss, present their issues as it is in their sector. And then while we send, the Labour Center begin to take it up to address them with the government. But they must be there to also put in their input and also address issues as regards to the demands and the rest of it. So that is what the new Labour Center is pushing forward. And that is the principle of labor democracy that we all know globally that works.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Sharon.
And it's a wrap on today's episode of Labor Lens. Join us same time, same station for a fresh edition of Labor Lens. Remember, labor creates wealth. I am Sharon Jason. Thanks for watching.